Hello and good evening. Tonight's Coach's Corner is a special one. I'm really excited. It's the fall. We're talking fall baseball. Anytime we get to talk college baseball with the college coaches, it's a great opportunity. But tonight, more than ever, a good friend, a longtime friend, also a coach of my youngest son, Tyler, Vanderbilt University head baseball coach, Tim Corbin. Tim, thank you so much. I know it's a busy time of year, and I appreciate your time.
No problem. Great time of year, as you mentioned, fall and football and fall baseball. So I really enjoy this time of year.
Well, I know you're a big fan of the fall. It's also the start of a little Boston Celtics, but more importantly, it's almost Bruins camp
Yeah.
time. So we got hockey and basketball, college football, and obviously fall baseball. Tim, so much to talk about. Parents, student athletes, all people involved with the sport are anxious. A lot of people submitted some questions, and I can't think of anybody that I'd like to ask these questions of other than yourself, because I know how much the sport means to you internally, obviously externally there at Vanderbilt. But I'd like to start with your interpretation of the college baseball experience. I know that you were a student athlete at Ohio Wesleyan. You've played the sport, you've coached at Presbyterian, Clemson, obviously now at Vanderbilt. But college baseball as a collective experience, what does it mean to you as a coach, and what should it mean to the families and the athletes as far as the balance between the academics, social, and obviously the baseball?
Well, I've always been pulled by the innocence of the kids. I mean, I think at 18, 19, 20 years old, I enjoy being around that age group. I enjoy particularly being at Vanderbilt in a private school. I enjoy that type of person that is academically strong and wants to be part of a private school where they can compete academically and athletically. But I like the pliability of the young guys. I like the fact that they'll listen. I like the fact that they old values will never go away. They just don't. I think in even in today's world, and I say even, I think kids still want discipline, kids still want organization, kids still want to have fun, kids still want to be social, kids still want to play a lot of baseball. But I think just guiding them and walking alongside of them is the part that I really enjoy, and I know our staff does, and Maggie does too. But it's the pulling power of coming back every year and just being part of something like this. It's my 42nd year as a coach and 23rd year here at Vanderbilt, but I enjoy it more than ever. I really do. I love the kids, and I know things around them have changed, but they're still they're still the same. They really are. The circumstances have changed around them, and they have to act accordingly. But kids are kids are kids. They still want to be guided and in a directive way. So I really enjoy that piece of it.
You and I were talking before we came here live on air, and I really want to kind of get to this point. 40 years ago, 45 years ago, albeit when dinosaurs roamed the earth, college baseball really wasn't aggressive recruiting. During your then sophomore year, there were no freshmen in my high school experience. But it was really after the completion of your junior season in high school, entering into the Legion process. So this is really not anything new. It's almost like we're bringing some sanity back to a process that might have got off tilt a little bit. Can you kind of talk about the ability and the benefit, more importantly, to student athletes, families overall, as far as slowing the process down and making sure it's a fit for everybody involved?
Yeah. When I think it comes to recruiting, and this is difficult because probably social media pushes the attention of someone that commits, whether it's football, basketball, or baseball, in such a way that it becomes so celebrated that that becomes the main objective. It's like the wedding, but the wedding, like everything else, lasts one night. And once the wedding's over, then the marriage happens. And the marriage is where the rubber meets the road. I think going back to your point, in the 70s or 80s or 90s, back when Recruiting was more juniors, seniors in high school. Kids would make a lot of decisions their senior year in high school. They oftentimes, when they made that decision, and you didn't have the transfer situation, you could transfer, but not the situation that we have now. But I think what coaches did and kids did is they were apt to find a better fit just because time was their greatest resource and they understood it. And with time comes more information. When more information is granted to the parents and the player, then they have a tendency to make a better decision on where they want to go. And the school has a better decision on the fit of the athlete, too. So those worlds start to come together. And I guess in a college baseball world, there's an opportunity for a better fit to occur. So I think it's better. I thought it was lunacy what we were doing the last few years, making decisions on a 14, 15-year-old kid when the brain development of a 14-year-old kid and making the decision isn't remotely close. But there again, I think the people who made those decisions were adults, and those adult decisions that are made affect young people. And I think we're at you and me and administrators are in a position where we need to protect younger people. We need to protect them from themselves. And how you protect them is grant them the space and the opportunity and the time to make favorable decisions later on in their life when they're equipped to do so. But I think in a world where it's like, get whatever you need as fast as you can, whether it's Amazon or a college decision, that shouldn't be the case. College decision is a very big decision in your life. And if it's a big decision, you should be granted the time in order to make it. And time equips you with making a better decision.
I think for the most part, the industry as a whole, and I'm speaking with regard to youth sports, not specifically and only just youth baseball, but youth sports, we're trying to fast forward through a childhood and wish time away to get to a destination that is years or in some cases a decade away. And I would love for you to share, just preaching to student athletes and parents, take your time, enjoy your high school experience, enjoy your summer experience or your other sports. We're becoming this one trick pony where we're 12 months a year. We're focused on the prize at the end of the rainbow, which is a draft pick or a Division I scholarship. But in between is where the magic happens. That's where you're spending time with your children. Can you just talk about that process of working towards your goal, but being in your moment and being present in your now and embracing your now?
I think the only way a young kid is able to embrace now is if the people in his inner circle and in his life will allow him to do that and communicate to him in such a way that he knows that, okay, I can just get better. And really what I have command and control of is myself and my decisions and how I operate. And if a young kid is left just to playing, and if we're really talking about playing baseball, then he can play baseball, he can get better at it with the objective of, as I get better and as I get older, the clarity of where I might fit, whether it's school A, school B, what division, makes no difference. It will start to become a little bit clearer for me as a person. It will start to get a little bit clearer for the people who watch me play. And then what it will do is it'll give my parents enough information to support the decisions I want to make in my life. I think that would be great. But I know that we're in a situation where, like I said at the beginning, making a hasty decision or making a celebratory decision becomes more important than the right decision. And I think the right decision is more about the allowance of letting a student athlete play his ninth grade year, play his 10th grade year, with college not even being a thought. College not even being a thought. Just try to expand yourself in terms of a player, however that is. Try to get on the right teams. Just try to play, try to grow, try to learn. And then as you go, then the clarity of where you go from a summer team, where you go from position, what you want to do just becomes a little bit clearer as you get into your junior year. We just had a camp, and it was juniors, and I had these same kind of conversations with the kids because I do recognize that once the camp is over, the kids and the parents are probably saying, I wonder what Vanderbilt thought of me. Are they going to make a decision? Are they going to offer me? And in a lot of ways, that might be the worst thing that we possibly could do, because we haven't even seen our team work out for an entire fall where we could evaluate them to see what the needs of the next year and the year after that would be. So, yeah, I do think it's not pushing the accelerator down. Pushing the accelerator down for schools is more about saying they want to try to grab the best kids as quickly as they possibly can at that age, but it might not necessarily be the best thing for the kid, and it might not be the best thing for the school either. So, as I said, time is the greatest resource of both the school and the kid.
I want to remind parents that as far as for camps, anything pertaining to camps, not only at Vanderbilt, but schools all over the country, all levels, all divisions, you can go into the Blue Book, the Baseball Blue Book. The app is all redesigned. It's in your app store, Google or Apple, and all the information for not only Coach Corbin, Coach King, Coach Brown, Coach Blankenship, all the contact information for schools such as Vanderbilt are located in the Blue Book. Tim, you and I are from the great Northeast, and I have this conversation a lot with families, specifically at this time of the year, about multiple sports. And you and I have had this dialogue many, many times. You know, I want to ask you about the creativity of just being a kid on a pond playing pond hockey. You and I think Bobby Orr, Phil Esposito, Jerry Cheevers, that type of thing. Then we basketball, John Havlicek, Larry Bird, et cetera, on a blacktop. Baseball, Sandlot. For me, it's Tony C., it's Kari Yastrzemski, Rico Petroselli. But can you just talk about, it's okay for high school athletes, for junior high athletes to not only play multiple sports, but play pickup sports. It doesn't have to be organized all the time. Have fun and compete with and against your peers in an unorganized capacity.
Yeah, well, I think you know how I feel. I think it's very important. I think number one, just because you're not playing baseball doesn't mean you're not getting better at baseball. Basically, what you're doing is you're just taking a break from the skill itself, but you may be getting better as an athlete. You may be getting better as a human too, because the team traits that exist inside of basketball and football or hockey or any other sport, there's so many transitional skills. And I think the one thing that's uniquely helpful in basketball, hockey, football is just spatial awareness. Spatial awareness in baseball, whether you're a pitcher, whether you're an infielder, whether you're an outfielder, is so important in understanding the game when the ball is in motion. And I feel like our best base runners, some of the best players we've ever had, some of the best pitchers. I mean, your son was a football player. Sonny Gray was a football player. David Price was a basketball player. Dansby Swanson was a point guard. There's something to be said about playing in a gym full of people under the lights. Sonny Gray was a Friday night guy his entire life. I mean, he was a quarterback taking snaps for Smyrna High School Friday night. So the transition of him pitching on a Friday or Saturday night, whatever night it may be, the feeling of competitiveness in environments that meant something, there was an easiness to it. The competitive piece became a reality. There was no auditioning. And I think when it comes to playing a sport, when you play a sport, they turn on a scoreboard. They turn on a scoreboard, and then it becomes competitive. Being competitive means there has to be situations in your life and experiences in your life where you've competed to win and to lose. That's real stuff. And that's real stuff even when you go beyond sports too, because you do that in any type of venture. So I just think that the ability to do that and not always be in a situation where you're auditioning to see who is potentially seeing you, like it's a beauty pageant, or you're posturing to see who may like you. It really, you mentioned Legion Baseball, but Legion Baseball was a time where there was an emotion towards the sport itself because it became very community oriented, and you were playing with people that you had an emotion for. So the emotion to win was much greater than maybe getting with a bunch of kids that come from different people, but you haven't had the time to develop a relationship. So you have no emotion towards them or towards what they're doing. So it becomes more of an individual quest to get what you can get. That's never felt right. I think feeling right is just being put in a situation where you can actually compete, and competition brings out the fibers that I think we all want when we start looking at players and pitchers that matter at this level.
One of the things that I would love for you to discuss a little bit is, another topic that I don't feel that parents really take enough time to understand, and that is the weight of expectation. Not so much when you're a student athlete or a college student athlete in particular, but in social media world, we look to our right and our left, and this guy throws 90 with the spin rate, and that guy hits 450-foot, home runs with an exit velocity of 100, and so everybody's trying to chase numbers instead of the focus of becoming the best version of themselves. And I think a lot of that is that weight of expectation that social media or the youth sports environment places. Can you just talk a little bit about, you find your way to the college experience. It's about time management. It's about routine. It's about immersing yourself in that team environment. But specifically at Vanderbilt, how do you manage the mental development or the mental health component to the student athlete?
Try to keep it simple and try to put less on their plate. I think, obviously the classroom's been a big deal for us and big deal for me personally because A, I enjoy it, but B, I think it centers the kids, and you get in an environment where there's no phone and you can stay very localized on what you're doing. I think kids operate best when there's just meat, potatoes, and a vegetable on their plate. When you're putting three different meats, three different vegetables, doesn't matter how much food is on their plate, you're basically going to fill them up. And when you fill them up, they become very uncomfortable. And I think in today's world, what adults would, how we would benefit kids is by trying to take those expectations, take the extras away from kids to where they're just focusing on their academics, their development, and a social life. I mean, I think it's pretty simple. I think if you keep things that simple, and it's not about what they're trying to do, it's not about what they're trying to gain, then I think the concentration level becomes greater. I think the level of passion for what they're doing becomes greater. I think the level of fun for what they're doing certainly becomes greater. So I think relinquishing them from those expectations is a big deal. And here, academics are pretty firm. I mean, I think it's a wonderful opportunity that they come here and they actually go to class. They go to class and they're humanistic. They develop a relationship with a professor. And as I tell the kids, it's like, a class costs $165 per class. That's a lot of money. So if you missed one, it's like taking $165 and lighting it on fire. The guys here, they look at classes as being special. And you walk across campus, and who knows, you might run into your future wife. You might run into your future best man. I mean, there's so much that can be gained by a college education that's done well. The COVID situation, I don't think it really helped universities in terms of it did this. We could hold classes on a computer. And that to me, that's not education. There's no humanistic relationship that's developed. There's no organizational skills that have to happen in the morning. You're teaching, these kids are moving closer to be adults, and you're basically teaching how to raise an adult. And by raising an adult, there has to be humanistic skills that happen when they wake up in the morning on their own. They make their bed, They do the things that they need to do to organize their life. They walk to class at a certain time after they've eaten, and then they navigate the day in such a way that when parenting becomes a, an experience for them, that becomes their environment, they're better able to handle it. So, um, that's why I love college athletics, because they're thrust into a world where other things matter too, and it hasn't hurt. The kids at Vanderbilt, we got a lot of major leaguers right now. We got more major leaguers than anyone.
Right.
And you're talking about an academic school. There's a reason why academic kids with baseball skill flourish at high levels. It's because they handle discipline, they handle organizational skills, and they know how to manage their time, and they know how to manage energy. So I think that's a big deal.
And I get it all the time. I have more arrows and bullets in my back. When Tyler made the decision to attend Vanderbilt, and I used to always tell people it's much more than baseball. It's about those 4 years of your life that you can never get back. It's very easy for an adult to tell a teenager, a late teenager, you can go to college at any time in your life. But I vividly remember Tyler's phone call when John Calipari and the Kentucky Wildcats, went into Memorial, and Vanderbilt beat them, and the experience of a college student rushing the floor, rushing the court. I think it's an integral part of learning, being part of someone, being part of that fraternity of the team as a Commodore, but the collective campus of 6,000 students on a campus. And I think that's a really big deal that we miss out as adults trying to help students and student athletes navigate college. The questions that parents have right now, Tim, are more about the reduction in their minds of opportunities. I tell people it used to be 35, it went to 40. We're going to 34. It hasn't been officially voted on yet. But do you foresee this as a good thing for college baseball? Do you think it's going to be a tough road to hoe for the first year or two? What are your thoughts on the 34, as we see it today, 34-man roster for college baseball?
I think in the long run, once we start calibrating our thoughts and decisions, I think it'll be a good thing for everyone. I think it'll be a good thing for universities. I think it'll be a good thing for players too. I do think it will reduce movement in time, because kids and coaches will have to make more intentional decisions about player acquisition and roster management and roster building. So I think it. Now, we've had rosters of below 34 before. Our first roster here was 26. So the great thing about a roster of 34 is there's more harmony, because kids get a seat at the table. They get an opportunity to play. When you have roster size of 40 and 45, it's difficult because kids get left out, and there's feelings behind that, and there's emotions behind that too. A kid, when he goes to college, he wants to see if he's got a chance. He wants a chance to play. He understands that if he goes to Vanderbilt or LSU or Tennessee, it may take some time, which it will. There has to be a level of patience that exists, because you're playing at a very high level, and baseball in this time is a little bit older just because of the transfer portal. But I think long term, I think the 34 roster will create more harmony with kids and teams. And I do think there will be a level of less movement. I think when there's more moving parts, there's an opportunity to move a little bit more for the kids, and there's more opportunity to be more transactional with kids in making decisions. And I don't think that's beneficial to anyone. But that's me. But I do think in the long run, I think it'll be beneficial.
Now, you and I had talked earlier. Do you feel this will become a conference type of decision, or will it be school specific? If the school, whether it's Title IX implications, or anything along those lines within athletic departments, do you think we'll see some conferences universally adopt the full scholarship for 34? Or do you think it'll just be a school by school decision?
Yeah, that's a good question. It could be school by school. It could be conference led. I'm not sure. We happen to be in a conference where whatever we're doing, we're probably going to do it at the highest level, whatever that may be. Um, and the SEC is, the slogan is "It just means more." It means more to a lot of schools. Let's face it. Oklahoma State's not in our conference, but it means a hell of a lot to Oklahoma State. I can guarantee you that. But I think what it does is it will give potentially conferences the option to do what they can. But to do what you can requires a balancing act for a department when you're managing a lot of other sports. And when you're managing a lot of other sports, the dollar only stretches out so far. So I'm anxious, like everyone, to see what that's going to look like. But it could be potentially left up to a school to do what it needs to do in order to fund the sport.
Do you foresee, Vanderbilt specifically taking a much slower or a much more efficient, slower approach to making sure that the student athletes are not only a good fit academically and athletically, but that they truly want to come to Vanderbilt as a freshman? In other words, is the high school athlete still going to be play an active role with regard to your recruiting or college baseball in general?
Yeah, as long as I'm here, it will. I just like the freshman athlete. I like the development piece of that, and I like kids that really really want to go to Vanderbilt. When you hear a kid say that's a school I want to go to, then you understand that they've already played out the circumstances of what it looks like academically and athletically. It's something that they're hungry for, and not everyone's hungry for that, and that's fine. But yes, for us, it's finding that person that A wants to come and B is a good fit for the university and good fit for our program, and certainly skilled enough. And uh, there's, I was talking to Ty and Kinger and Brownie about that today, and you've got a clump of kids that are all very very good, and you would take a lot of them, but you can't do that. You have to make decisions, and when you're looking at a clump of kids that are all really good, then in essence, what you want is you want to create more time so you can watch them develop some more, so you can make a right decision. But if they're recruited by other schools, they may say, well, I'm not going to grant you that time because if you don't think I'm good enough now, then I might go in this direction. You might have to live with that. I think at the end, uh, what I don't enjoy is sitting in this office, looking across the table and looking at a young man and saying, it's just not going to work out. You can't be 100% right. You're not going to be. I mean, there's going to be kids and situations where it might not be the right fit for them, and it might not be the right fit for you. And the only way you will determine that is by more time at your school. But at the same time, for us, if we can make less mistakes that way, I would rather do it. We haven't been very active in the portal. We've grabbed a couple kids, but I think for us, it's more about patching holes and roster spots than trying to build a roster. We're still very intentful on building rosters with young kids.
My final question here, Tim, for you, and it comes from a lot of the parents.
Yep.
You and I grew up in a part of the country where the words postgraduate school were more of an academic, environment. The Phillips Andovers, Exeter, those types of schools, Salisbury. Can you talk about if a parent or a student athlete is going to consider a gap year? Would you feel it would be more beneficial, in your opinion, to make sure that you're maintaining some type of academic balance as opposed to just taking a hard left and going into the weight room for a year and getting on a Rapsodo or Trackman or something and then reemerging a year later? Just talk about the benefit in your mind potentially of a postgraduate year in an academic environment.
Yeah, yeah. I can't imagine doing it that way that you just mentioned. Number one, I mean, I'm a product of a PG year, so
Right.
I went to high school, very rural high school. I wasn't as mature as I needed to be. Mom and dad didn't go to college, but they had the wherewithal to say this young man needs another year. So I took another year. I can't tell you. I listen. More than anything, and I'm at a school that prides itself on private school education. There's been more there's two rooms in this university that have helped kids get to levels that they never thought they could get to. One of them is the classroom. The second one is the weight room. The weight room, I think, goes without saying. When you start doing things physically and from a fitness standpoint that you've never done before, your self-esteem and your confidence grows. But more than anything, the mind drives the body. And the mind, when you develop the mind and you start to developing mental skill sets that you didn't think you had, then your confidence moves to levels that you've never seen a young man ever before develop. And we had a daughter that played tennis here. We saw that. Was she a Vanderbilt student when she came in? She was not. Was she a Vanderbilt student when she left? She was. Her processor sped up, so her decision-making process became a lot greater. Her brain developed. It got stronger. It developed more. Her mental toughness grew. Her court skills as a tennis player took off. So yes, I think that's the unfortunate piece of some people thinking that in order to play baseball and to move back a year and just develop in the weight room and develop as a baseball player with no educational skills, no brain strength, no brain development, think that that's the right decision to develop as a baseball player. I think that's really far-fetched, and I think that's limited thinking. I don't. I've seen it too. I've seen it for 42 years. I've seen certain kids, whether it's your son or David Price or Fulmer or Bueller or Sonny Gray, you go on and on and on. Austin Martin. I mean, Austin Martin wasn't your typical Vanderbilt student, but Austin Martin became a pretty damn good Vanderbilt student by the time he left. I just think that they equip themselves with so many social and humanistic skills that aren't in the classroom. I just think it's for the benefit of them and their baseball playing abilities.
I really believe, and I know this to be a fact, when Tyler played in Japan, he was spending time with students that he had met while he was at Vanderbilt. And I try to get parents to understand the balance of the college or the academic experience, both high school and then obviously college, is really what this whole process is about. And nobody says it better than you do. So I appreciate you taking the time to share these thoughts. I think it's an invaluable a message for families and student athletes to hear. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today and share your thoughts.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, I think one of the things, and as I told the camp people the other day, I'm not in this just for Vanderbilt. And I think people know that. I spend a great deal of time with other kids to try to find places for them that have nothing to do with Vanderbilt. That could be playing against Vanderbilt and beating Vanderbilt. But I just don't have that type of ego. We want the best players, yes. But at the same time, I can look at other kids and try to help them and try to find their fit, because someone needs to help them. And I'm not saying I have all the answers. I don't, but I feel like I can help people in certain cases like that. So I enjoy that piece of it, Walter.
Well, that's a lot of what we do here, Tim, is just try to be able to help parents with respect to the overall process, offer some guidance, as somebody who's lived it as a coach, but more importantly, as a dad, and be able to share my relationships with people such as yourself and coaches from all over the country. So again, I appreciate you taking the time. Please say hello to Molly for me, and Coach Kinger and Coach Brown, Coach Blankenship. I appreciate everything that Vanderbilt University has provided for my family, my son more importantly, and I want to make sure that parents have access to Tim Corbin being able to share. He's like the ambassador of youth baseball, college baseball, and I love when you take the time to join us.
Yeah, thanks for all you do for a lot of people, Walter. I do appreciate it.
Well, I love it. I enjoy it. I'm going to continue to do it as long as people want to listen. I want to tell parents, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. If you like conversations like this, please give us a thumbs up. Tim, best of luck this upcoming fall, as well as the upcoming spring season in 2025.
Yeah, go Patriots.
Absolutely. I think we have a new quarterback, UNC,
Yeah.
Drake May. I think that's our starting quarterback. All right, Tim, thank you.
Thanks, Walter.